So Roberta, if it's all right with you, we can get started.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. This is the February 28th, 2024 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Roberta, do you mind calling roll?
Sure.
Thank you.
Eric,
Here.
Jahan,
Present.
Heather,
Present.
Laura,
Present.
John,
Here.
David,
Here.
Ryan,
Present.
and I think we are missing Rose and Joe Capuano.
Thank you so much, Roberta. So we have three key items on the agenda. We can start with the approval of the meeting minutes. So these are the meeting minutes from January 24th, 2024 meeting. I wanted to see whether the members of the committee have had the chance to review the meeting minutes and whether anyone has any comments or edits for Roberta. Heather, please.
I reviewed them and I don't have any corrections.
Thank you.
Yeah, I skimmed them. I because I got them after this early this morning. I did not have time to do my usual thorough read, but it seemed fine. I skimmed it, and I didn't have any corrections either.
Thank you, Laura.
Looks fine to me too.
Great, great. So I do have one small item, Roberta. This is under agenda item 1.
Yep.
Where it says the introduction of new officers. I think there's a N missing where it says Chair Habib and Vice Chair
Oh,
Kirchhoff. So
okay.
just an N. And that was the only one on my side. Great. So if there are no other comments or edits to the meeting minutes, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll
Thank you,
second
Heather.
that.
Thank you, Laura. Roberta, would you mind calling roll?
Sure. Eric,
Yes.
Jahan,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Joe. This is a vote on a motion to approve the meeting
Yes.
minutes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And my apologies to everyone for sending these minutes out today. I typically intend to send them on Fridays before our meetings on Wednesdays. So if I space again, please, if you're used to seeing the meeting minutes, let me know if I didn't send them and I will get them out sooner.
Okay.
No problem.
Yep.
Great. So the meeting minutes have been adopted. So Roberta, if you don't mind, we can go to the next item on the agenda, which is the final deliberation on Somerville Museum's FY24 application for artifact preservation. I'm not sure if you have some materials that you want to share or talk us through the application matter.
Sure. Barbara Mangum of the Somerville Museum sent us a budget showing what her priorities would be if they were to be offered a $10,000 grant this year. So I'm going to share the screen to show that. So you should see it on the screen now. 2024 Community Preservation Budget Form with priorities. So she has shown the conservation of the paintings, 4 paintings altogether, plus some supplies to aid in the collection preservation project. And those add up to a total of $10,000.
Great, thank you so much, Roberta. So I do want to open up this matter for discussion amongst committee members to get some thoughts on the priorities listed here, and also Roberta, I'm not sure if you have a sense of the budget. I think we had talked about the budget to show whether
Yes.
the $10,000 allocation is reasonable.
Sorry, it is going slowly because it doesn't like my opening new documents while a different one is shared. So let me get this arranged in place and then I'll share with you the screen again.
Sure, Roberta.
Okay, so I have both on the screen now. On the left is the summary of the budget that we have been working from for the last several months. The grant tracking detail is the budget that we've been working from, and the summary just shows the totals, the total funds available, total funds that have been committed this fiscal year. The current balance of the undesignated fund balance is $761,000, and the proposal is to award $10,000 to the Somerville Museum for the projects that I've just shown on the other side of the screen. So if the CPC were to recommend $10,000 of funding towards Somerville Museum, that would leave your balance at $751,000 in the undesignated fund budget.
Great. Thank you so much, Roberta. I think this view is going to be helpful for the committee members as we discuss this matter. So I wanted to see if anyone had any thoughts in favor, opposed, or any other consideration that we should keep in mind. I mean, the dollars are in front of us, but also we want to be able to see how we feel about the Somerville Museum's request and their prioritization considerations as well.
Oh, no, that's the wrong one. That's
Heather, please.
I think this is sort of in I think the pieces are just sort of falling into place from our discussion last month, where we felt that it was reasonable to give them $10,000 this year from the undesignated fund, and wanted to know their priorities. And I guess they really want to work with this conservationist on the paintings and get them stabilized. So I support giving them the $10,000 for these priorities as listed.
Sure. Thank you so much, Heather. Ryan?
I agree with Heather wholeheartedly. I think this is in line with what we expected and had hoped for coming out of the last meeting. The proposed priorities seem to be in line with the CPC goals, and I think is a worthwhile way to allocate some funds and still keep our powder dry as we said we wanted to for the home stretch of the year.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Any other thoughts, comments?
Yeah,
David?
yeah. Hi, I also agree.
Great. Thank you, David.
It looks fine to me.
Yes, I'm here. I'll chime in. Agree with my colleagues.
Yep, same here.
Great. Anyone have any concerns, any amendments, changes that might be helpful? And thank you, Roberta, for bringing up the document, the Word
Um,
document.
The recommendation. Okay, Council.
Okay. So if it appears that the members of the committee are in broad terms in favor of this, would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the proposal as presented tonight.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Anyone would like to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you so much, Eric. Roberta, I see you making edits. Before we do a roll call vote, do you have any thoughts with respect to the documents? Any special considerations that we need to keep in mind as we move towards roll call?
So we have the standard funding conditions, although the
Right.
museum is already subject to several of these. Um, the funded portion must be initiated within 3 years unless extension is granted. That's already built into grants with outside organizations, since that's the contract would require an extension after 3 years. CPA funds are to be used only for CPA eligible expenses. The museum will install a permanent sign noting CPA funding at the completion of the project and a temporary sign during construction. They already have been subject to this because of grants that were awarded previously. And unspent funds will be returned to the CPA fund. Actually, well, I mean, if they were advanced any funds that weren't spent, they would be returned to the CPA fund. That's part of our standard grant agreement anyway. So I don't see any special circumstances in this case that you would want to take a special consideration for.
Great. Thank you so much for confirming that, Roberta. In that case, would you mind calling roll?
Yeah, before I forget, you should change
Sure,
the date from 2023 to 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's a great point.
Hmm,
Is there any other? I mean, I know we solicited this modification of their application. Is the spreadsheet that they submit, is that sufficient for our records? You know, of a change in the application scope?
Yes. Yes, this would be, this can be attached to the final application that we keep in our records. And this scope can be attached to the future grant as well. Actually, the scope is as described in this project description. Because we don't want them to be committed to the exact prices that are in this budget. If anything changes, we don't want to make them have to go through a contract amendment for something really minor, as long as they stick to the general description of preventative conservation measures for archives housed in the document room and the conservation of actually 4 paintings.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like it's 4. Yeah.
4 19th century paintings in their frames. So I think that is, that's the scope that they'll be bound to.
Are the first ones? Is it 19th century? Wait a minute, the first one's 1840. So is that 19th? Oh, so the last one is the 20th century. I guess early 20th century.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can just
For
take out. Maybe you don't have to say what
historic-
century they're from.
Right.
Great. David,
It is 3 paintings. They just list the frames separately.
In the list, priority 2
Oh, yeah,
has
yeah.
3, and then priority 5 has 1 more painting.
Yeah, no, but
It's 2.
think
It's
Heather's
John
right.
Magoon, Sarah Ann Magoon, and then the
and then
frames.
the
Frames,
frames of
ah.
Magoon. Yeah, so it is. So you were right the first time that it's 3.
Thank you.
Maybe they'll find another one.
You're right.
Good catch.
Great. So if everyone feels comfortable, we can, Roberta, if you don't mind calling roll.
Sure, I'm going to stop the share so I can see you all.
Absolutely.
Eric,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Jahan.
Yes.
So that is all in the affirmative, and the motion passes. I think you are 9 now, 8.
Great. Thank you so much, Roberta.
Yep.
So we'll move on to the third agenda item, which is the annual review process for FY25 funding round.
Mhm.
Roberta, do you mind sharing some of the documents that you've prepared?
Sure, I will take a moment to open the folder. So the largest lift this month is discussion of the application instructions, the application materials. So since you haven't had a lot of time, I really appreciate, honestly, the copy editing that some of the members do on all the materials that I put out there. And I welcome your copy edits in writing after the fact, since I know you haven't had a lot of time to go through it word by word. But maybe in the meantime, this evening, I can just talk through some of the major changes, and maybe there may be some points for the committee to discuss, whether you want to make some policy changes.
Okay.
So the first page just gives an overview of the program, and I've tried to simplify the language where possible, eliminate some verbiage that I think didn't help to explain the program very well. So major changes on the front page, I established the schedule for this year. And I've added, I will show you one new form, which is an HPC advisory review request form. So the purpose of this additional form is to clarify any confusion between the CPC, HPC, and the staff supporting both boards about, and actually the applicants, so that everyone understands what their point of responsibility is and what their decision point is in the process. And I think that's the only major change on the first page. In the minimum eligibility criteria section, I've replaced a description of what the eligibility criteria are with this self-guided quiz to help people determine whether their project is potentially eligible. So I'm hoping that this will be an easy way for people to understand the eligibility requirements. It might take some road testing to know for sure. And there's still on the next page, the table that provides more detailed explanation of what's meant by each of the terms used. And then the next page has links to each of the actual forms so they can take them online. I will continue to offer the forms online in the same way that they have been previously. I've learned from talking to several of the applicants from last year that some people like to do it online, some people prefer to do it on paper. I prefer to receive it online if they're willing to submit it that way, but I am not sure how to automate the process so that they can do it either way and it feeds into the same stream. So that's just something that we'll have to consider and pay attention to going forward. The intent forms were a stage of the process that had been added a little bit before I came on board. I think it might have been called a pre-application, and it was intended for two purposes. People could use the pre-application or the intent form to request a feasibility study on some project that they had in their imagination on most likely city-owned land, or they could request a project on city-owned land that required the city to partner with them. So it was a formal way of requesting partnership. And last year, I changed that process so that it was required of all incoming applicants because they might not be aware if they needed to partner with the city. I mean, it's not required of the city, but it's required of all outside applicants, or it's recommended of, I've clarified now that it's recommended of all outside applicants. It's only required if you want to partner with the city, in which case it needs to be submitted by this deadline of May 31st in order to partner with the city for a project this funding round. If you submit this on June 10th this year, I'll accept the intent form and begin the process of trying to establish a partnership with the city, but no guarantee that it will be in this funding round. You may just be in the queue for the next year's funding round instead. And there's no guarantee actually this year that it will be in this funding round. It's at the discretion of, I have to, if I receive a request for a project on city-owned land, then I need to find out who would be the department that they need to partner with, reach out to them, have an internal meeting with them to discuss whether this is a project that they would agree to partner on. And if they would, then I will facilitate a meeting with the applicant so that they can plan to move forward and complete the eligibility determination form. So that's how that process actually works behind the scenes. But in order to spare the applicants all of that, understanding the details, I just want every applicant to submit the intent form, and then I'll figure out what do they need to be able to, what kind of support do they need to be able to go through the application process and provide that support, whatever it is. So in the past, we've used this form to enable people to apply for feasibility studies. And after some thought, I'm proposing to take that out of the instructions because it's only been used once to my knowledge for a project that may never have the opportunity to move forward because it was for a feasibility study to identify opportunities to create a dog park in West Somerville. And in reality, it would require the city making a very substantial commitment to build a dog park in West Somerville to implement the findings of that feasibility study. And the committee, the city, I think, has taken that into advisement, but is weighing that with all of the priorities that they've learned through their open space and recreation plan process. And so the feasibility study doesn't really merit going around PSUF's process for identifying its priorities. PSUF still, wants to go to follow through on the priorities that they've identified through their public process. So it puts PSUF in a little bit of a conflicting position to have this feasibility study that's competing with other priorities. So we may still, if an applicant comes to us, we might still suggest that a feasibility study would be a good first step, and the committee could fund a feasibility study out of the administrative funds, but or, PSUF may request a feasibility study to be funded out of the administrative funds, but I'm not offering that in the application instructions. So this is an area, I think, for the committee to give feedback, whether you agree with that thinking or if you think that we should take a different approach. Heather?
So-
Oh,
yes.
go ahead.
I think a feasibility study could be a regular grant application, just like all the other grant applications, and then it can be judged on its merits as we assess all of the grants for that year.
Mhm. That's a good point. And if they submitted an intent form, I would probably approach PSUF to ask whether they'd be willing to partner on that.
Mhm.
So that's I think the most significant, one of the most significant changes that I've made in the application instructions this year.
Roberta,
more comment, yeah?
to go back to that really briefly. So would
Yeah.
your proposal then be just to take out that bullet if we're not recommending that, or is it, or to be changed, or this reflects the revision that you're?
This reflects the revision that I've already put in place.
Okay, so it just removes the city's need to participate in the feasibility study?
No, it removes the dual intent of the intent form of letting people request a feasibility study. So a feasibility study is no longer an option that we're giving the public for how to use the intent form. If I were to bring up last year's instruction manual, there would be instructions about how to request a feasibility study.
So what is this final, so what does this last bullet mean then? I'm a little confused because it seems feasibility studies is specifically called out there as something that one could use the intent form to
If
support.
analyses or feasibility studies are needed to support a potential CPA application, the CPC may fund the studies or they may be carried out independently by the applicant. Yeah, you're right. Maybe we want to take that bullet out because it's still true, but it might be confusing to include that information. And that's really something that's better delivered through a conversation when it's needed rather than in the general instructions.
So I mean, I don't mean to, I don't want to get ahead of, this discussion. But I was just kind of confused by
Yeah.
it.
No, I appreciate that feedback. That's why we're having this conversation.
So Roberta, are there any other notable areas of change besides the feasibility study and also the determination, the at the start of the application, the applicant determination survey? Can you point to any other areas that the committee members should be mindful of?
I think that those are the biggest two changes, but I'm just going to still skim quickly through the application instructions with you all so that I can orient you as you're reading it on your own time. So the CPA program information section 3 is the longest section and it contains all of the detailed program guidelines. I'm afraid of overwhelming people with too much information, but I also don't want to not provide information that they need. A question that I have on the comparative evaluation criteria page. This comes from our CPP, and this is something that maybe we want to discuss about the CPP. Proposals that address more than one CPA eligible purpose, leverage additional funding, there are lots of reasons why proposals will be given higher consideration. Leveraging additional funding involving collaboration of more than one agency, organization, board, or committee, or show a comprehensive community-centered multidisciplinary approach will be given highest consideration. I personally am in agreement with several of these criteria, but the first criteria that address more than one CPA eligible purpose, I question whether that alone is a reason for elevating the priority of a project, because most of the projects that we've had, some of which have been very high priority projects, have only addressed one of the CPA program areas. It's unusual that there's a property that addresses where multiple program areas could be addressed in the same project. But that doesn't make them any less of a priority. So I wonder whether it might be worth revisiting this criteria as a priority in our plan.
So, well, I'm wondering if this is addressed just by changing will to may or something like that.
Mhm.
You know, or something that just kind of makes, you know, saying this is, you know, all this is, it's within our discretion.
That's true. Yeah.
But then it can't be may be given high, you know, it has to be parsed. I was trying to figure out on the fly how to change the rest of the sentence, but basically I think you're just going to saying we will weigh, you know, we'll, you know, that, you know, we'll increase our, I don't know, someone else clever can come up with, you know, exactly what it affects, but you know, our weighing of, you know, the proposal against the other proposal we get. But not necessarily that it's going to automatically be highest.
Maybe given favored consideration.
Or just higher consideration.
Yeah, I can live with that too.
Sure. I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
And then actually with that change, you could probably go back to will, because now you've got two kind of caveat, you know, because you say will be given, you know what I mean? This is kind of silly to say it may be, you know, it will be given higher. You know, it still, I think, gives us, you know, we're not promising anything.
Mhm. Okay. I'll leave this as it is right now. And when we in next month or the month after, we'll look again at all of the priorities that are stated in the CPP, and, you know, with fresh eyes, consider whether they actually reflect the highest priorities.
And it sounds like you're receptive to getting specific editing suggestions.
Yes, very much.
But
Yeah.
in that case, I guess it would be switch editing to, I think it's a suggesting or something, so
Mhm.
that it doesn't overwrite what's there. It comes in as a red line.
So the copy that's in this folder is a copy. I have the original in another location.
Okay, so you'd
So
be able to compare.
yes.
Okay.
I know it's the collaboration tools using online software are easier to follow than this is just a straight up Word doc. So not as good for collaboration, but it formats much better. So it's kind of a trade-off, collaboration versus formatting.
Do you have a preference about how we do it?
If you, I'm thinking on, as I speak right now. It might be best if you were to download it, make your suggested edits and track changes and send it back to me. I'll
Yeah.
find your
Okay.
changes and incorporate them.
But-
That's probably the best way for a committee to collaborate.
But the,
Okay.
the pull down, the drop down in the top right corner, the editing, it doesn't, if you click on that, you see where the up in the corner it says editing and above that. Just above that. Yeah.
Oh, maybe that works.
I think that if you type in, well, since it's your document, yeah, see, so then it just shows up as a,
Yeah, it's tracking changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's turned on right now, but it's still probably best if you don't edit. In fact, I'm not sure, I might have accidentally this time. Usually when I send you a link, I have it view only. And this time I might not have remembered to select view only when I sent you the link, but you should download it, make your changes and track changes and send it back to me. And that way we don't run afoul of open meeting law.
Okay.
All right, so the evaluation criteria, and then there are some guidelines pertaining to specific circumstances, several pages of those. These are the historic preservation guidelines. And then the application forms and prompts. So this is sort of I think a duplicate of the page earlier on in the document that has all of the links to the application forms. But this is an intro to the section where they have printable forms if they prefer to do it, fill it out on paper instead of online. So the intent form has that minimum eligibility criteria self-guided quiz again. And this time I've added a maybe option and invite people if it's maybe, I will reach back to them and talk with them about their project. I will do that regardless anyway. The eligibility determination form has the same format. And a few other questions that we need at the eligibility determination stage. And then applicants are required to fill out this checklist acknowledging that they are aware of all of these forms or agreements that come with the grant. And if it's a city-owned project, they have to have the signature of the department that they're going to be partnering with. And then the Historic Preservation Commission request form asks first, what is the resource that's going to be improved? Is it a building or structure, document, artifact, or other object? Because there are two different sets of criteria for HPC to consider depending on which box they check. And then how old is it? And please attach at least one photo of the resource. Section 2, historical significance. So we determine whether it's already considered to be a historically significant asset. And if not, then HPC has to make the determination. And then we ask two questions that will help HPC to make that determination. And then advisory review. please describe the scope of the improvements to be undertaken, what level of planning has already been undertaken, and has an architect, contractor, or historic preservation professional already been identified to carry out the project. So that's the gist of the HPC request form.
Great. Thank you so much for walking us through this. I recognize that the members of the committee haven't had the chance to delve deeper in their reviews, but I do want to open up the conversation around some preliminary thoughts, and I see Heather's hand is up. Heather, please go right ahead. Heather, I think you're muted at this time.
Can you go back to the historic review request form?
Yes.
So I would just like to add that landscapes are historic resources as well. So building, landscape, building structure or landscape,
Okay, that would,
historic parks and stuff like that.
and I'm going to highlight this because that might need to be reflected back on the form or the criteria.
So is the idea is that the applicant fills out this request form and then we share that with HPC, or like what how does the flow
The
go?
the applicant will submit the request form to me, and then I will submit that request form to the planning division and have them put it on the agenda. Because right now we don't have a trigger for a CPA project to be put on the HPC's agenda. And sometimes it falls through the cracks, which is why we frequently have last minute HPC input at the very end of our process. Ideally, it would come earlier in the process. So this form will give a formal trigger to be put on their agenda. And so this is where the buildings and structures versus vessels, real property, documents, and artifacts comes from. So I wonder if real property would include landscapes.
Well, I think when you look at the federal guidelines, it's sort of right up there with buildings and structures. It's real property here is sort of meaning artifacts.
Okay, I will actually, so before, because this is a document that was created by HPC themselves back in the beginning of the CPA program, I will consult with the staff on where
Okay.
landscapes belong. So right now I have it highlighted and I can go back and check on where they'd like it to be before I decide that myself.
I don't know if it matters in this, but landscaping is not something that's reviewed as part of the historic district process. We don't have any purview over that, but then again, we don't have that over historic artifacts either. So
Right.
it's not like that's a mutually an issue, but maybe that would impact how that's classified within the form. I don't know.
Okay, I will, that's another good point, because that might affect how the HPC members view the request. So I will, I'll confer with the staff about where they would want the landscapes to be included.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather and Eric, for your comments. I just wanted to see if there are other members of the committee who have comments regarding the application, the draft application that we see in front of us. So seeing none, I would highly encourage everyone to take a deeper review of the application, the draft application, and provide the feedback and comments that Roberta's looking for. In particular, if you would be able to download the application, do the necessary track changes, and then submit them over to Roberta by email, that would be highly encouraged. So thank you so much for taking the time to review. Roberta, would you like to move on to the next sub agenda item, the public hearing format, perhaps?
Sure. So I will share. I've given some thought, but really at this moment, just have a very rudimentary idea about the public hearing. So in the past, I think all or most of you have been attended our public hearings in the past, where we have typically invited specific people to provide testimony about the needs that they see. And so this is a unique way that Somerville has gone about this. It's not necessarily the norm for all CPCs, and it has both been very interesting to hear what people have to say and sometimes overwhelming because we pack them that like we will have a very long agenda of speakers. So I wanted to ask whether all of you have some ideas about whether we would like to continue with this kind of format, what kind of people you would want to hear from, what are the prompts that I might ask people to speak about that will provide information that's helpful to you or to it's usually mostly just the speakers who come to attend the CPC meeting, the public hearing. We haven't in recent times received very many people from the general public who come to the hearings. So I wanted to get your thoughts. I did think about some projects or some people who I've been speaking with in the course of the consolidated plan process who are potential new proponents of projects who we haven't heard from before. So they include someone from Project Soup and from the Center for Teen Empowerment, both of which are located at a city-owned building at 165 Broadway that could use some love. As someone who I spoke with recently said, put it, their buildings need a hug. So I thought that would be a nice way to invite people to come and talk to us about what their needs are. So I thought about some other organizations who we haven't necessarily spoken with in the past. And one that I was aware of is an organization that's advocating for cleanup of Alewife Brook. John offered that because they've just been doing a lot of outreach for the open space and recreation plan. Maybe they have some other people who they've spoken with who we might not have heard from before.
Yes,
but there
that
aren't.
reminds me.
Yes, thank you. So that's as much thinking as I've done about this to date. And maybe you all have some ideas to share, or maybe you'd like to use the time differently from how we've been doing it in the past.
So thank you so much, Roberta. I just wanted to see if members of the committee have any comments. Yeah, I, for one, am certainly supportive of having new organizations come in and then present and speak, so that way we can hopefully expand our applicant pool. So I'm certainly in favor of that. Or I'd love to get some additional thoughts and comments around the public hearing process, format, as well as anything else that you might think might be of interest both to the committee members, but also to the wider public as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we've been discussing for a while, how do we, hear from other than the usual suspects that we seem to get this, applications from year after year, at least in my experience. But I'm also interested in Roberta, any ideas you have on how we get the wider general public engaged in the hearing? Because I was kind of surprised when I attended my first hearing and was expecting the public to be there, and really it was just presentations by the applicants, which
Yeah.
which I guess in my narrow way of thinking wasn't really a hearing. And I understand if they don't come, they don't come, but I'm just kind of wondering if you have experience with your your town's CPC and or how other towns do it.
I have not seen a lot of engagement with the public hearings from most communities. It's very early on when you have a brand new CPA program and you're studying the community needs for the first time. It is, I think, easier to draw a big crowd to talk about what the needs are. But since this is an annual exercise, the answers don't change that much from year to year. However, in Somerville, there's a lot of population turnover. The population actually changes a lot from year to year. And I think there's not a great awareness of the existence of the CPA program. So it's a problem. I don't have a solution to how to increase public awareness of this program. Or, it's not a program that just anyone can apply to. It's for a specific purpose. So there's a question of what do we want to hear from people that would be a compelling question to bring them to come and speak to us.
What about the Somerville Transportation Equity STEP? I think that's their acronym. The bike advocate group. I could see how they would be hooked into like folks aware of open space issues. That there's that big city planning thing going on with by McGrath Highway. That's big in scope and its own entity, its own beast basically. But they just seem like somebody that should be aware of us if they're not. The folks who are active in that group.
Mm-hmm.
It's very.
John, I know you have your hand raised as well. Would you like to contribute as well?
Yeah, thank you. So maybe there's something that we could do that's like almost like we make a presentation for a presentation. Like if we kind of give them a background of like, here's who the CPA is and like show them the video and have a little like flyer or package that we can give out to these communities that or parties that we know of, and then invite them to give us a quick presentation of an introduction of their team, kind of a little bit of a background of them, their project, what they do, and then what are some of the problems. And maybe we can give a prompt of like, what are some of your problems related to open space or this or that, or kind of spark some ideas in this prompt, and then invite them to come and speak to us and give that 5-minute pitch or 10-minute pitch about their site and their problems. And then we can kind of point them in different directions and see if they're a good fit for us.
Maybe an approach treating it more like a focus group rather than inviting them to like each give their 5-minute pitch. So we could have first a round of introductions, and then we pose some questions to each of the applicants who come, or like each of the participants who come, and then facilitated conversation rather than just testimony.
Yeah, actually, that's an even better idea. Kind of get the roundtable conversation going.
So you had offered some potential questions. What are their problems?
Yeah, well, like, what are their problems related to like open space? I can start to brainstorm those, but I don't have any like right off the top of my head.
Okay.
That's no problem at all, John. We do appreciate your comments, though. Heather, I think you also have your hand raised, please.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're talking about a meeting a month from now. And so I think considering that it is hard to get the public to aware of and to attend these meetings, if we do kind of invite people we want to hear from and have a conversation with them, it might be the most fruitful use of the time. And I wonder if actually the question isn't so much about their priorities, but really about how do we get equity? How do we expand our grant applicants? How do, maybe it's more around this thing about these questions of outreach, how do we reach new applicants and diversify our work?
Is
Thank you,
that
Heather.
something? I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Please go right ahead, Roberta.
Is that something that we can ask of people who attend the public hearing? Or is that a question that we need to work on ourselves in this meeting or on our own over the next months to bring people to the public hearing?
I think it's the second, the latter. Right, I mean, because it was our most recent meeting, we were talking about having a subcommittee, right? To work on just this.
Right, right, Laura. I agree with you, and actually, one of our next topics might be a nice segue with the public engagement consideration. We could think of additional ideas around that because I think that we, in broad terms, see the value and benefit of advancing equity, bringing in new perspective applicants, and also being much more engaged with the public. Those are some critical goals that we have discussed in the past, and I mean even last year's discussion. So I would definitely encourage that, and Roberta, perhaps we can also figure out the planning for the subcommittee, which I'm glad Laura mentioned as well.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a longer term project. This meeting is just a few weeks away. We can take a step or two, cast our net a little wider, do a couple things, but this is a longer term goal, I feel like.
It is.
And so John can provide a contact list for specific to open space and recreation projects. And I have been working on a contact list for the consolidated plan that includes the people who I mentioned above. Those are the ones from the consolidated plan process who jumped out at me as potential CPA applicants. But I have a longer list of people who are engaged in affordable housing and community service programs. So I can definitely include them in the outreach as well. And try to craft a catchy invitation to attend the public hearing so that it sounds like a conversation that would be worth being a part of.
I think that sounds great, Roberta. Really appreciate your efforts here.
A question for Alan, if you're on the line.
I am.
Hi, Alan.
Evening.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Do you
Nope.
think that we could be given permission to host a hybrid meeting just for our public hearing?
So we can absolutely, I mean, I think from our end, it's not a matter of permission, it's a matter of working out the logistics of the equipment, the setup, and the delivery. Because that has been, I don't think we've worked out all the kinks on that yet.
Mhm. I wonder if a place like Somerville Museum would be willing to let us use their facility to host the public hearing. And
By that, do you mean like use their equipment and their setup?
I mean, we have equipment that would enable us to be hybrid. I mean, maybe it's too late because we don't have very much time before this has to get advertised. But I was thinking that an in-person event might be more exciting than a Zoom meeting to try to entice people to come to the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I just know that the only successful hybrid meetings that I've heard of are the city council ones that are run by like the cable department downstairs with their like full setup.
Hmm.
But we can certainly dig around City Hall and check. I'm happy to help you assist in doing that.
Okay. Committee members, would you have interest in making this be a hybrid meeting if we're able to work that out logistically?
This is the March, the open meeting, the 27th.
Yes.
Um, yeah, why not? I mean, I have a feeling you're gonna get more people who jump on electronically, but
You may be right. I don't know. It's anyone's guess.
yeah, exactly.
I do want to weigh in, and I'm kind of agnostic on whether we try and do it or not, but I'm not wild about doing it at the Somerville Museum because they've received so much money from us. And
I see.
I don't feel like there's an appearance of the same appearance of neutrality that we should have just perhaps at either if we can't get a space at City Hall, maybe one of the libraries. Maybe they have a community room we can use, and they may have the equipment too.
That's true.
Right. I definitely agree with David's sentiments. For me, it's really what Alan highlighted. It's really the audiovisual equipment working out well because we don't want to lose the contingent that's going to be logged in electronically. But just because we want to hybrid meetings, work effectively with the right equipment. So I think that area needs to be considered. But I would say that it would be a nice to have. I like the idea if we can execute on it well.
All right. I will look into it. And so I think this has been a helpful conversation. We've honed in on advertising with a catchy message to a very specific contact list that is broad and hopefully we can bring some new people to attend the hearing. We may still want to reach out to some specific new people just to make sure that we have at least a minimum coming to the hearing. And maybe not only new people, but, reach out to the existing grantees as well. And then to begin with a presentation about CPA and then have introductions. We can introduce all of the committee members and then introduce all of the people who attend the hearing, and then facilitate a conversation with discussion questions. So we'll let them know that we're going to change the format from previous years. Instead of asking them to come with prepared testimony, we're asking them to come and participate in a facilitated conversation. And then the discussion questions that I have so far are: what are the problems relating to open space and historic preservation? What community needs can be met with an investment in the assets that they're talking about? And how can CPA better advance equity?
What about housing? You said historic preservation and open space. Is housing
What are
because
their
it's the
needs
trust
and
fund?
housing? You're right. So we will be having people of all three persuasions.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Roberta. I just wanted to say I think the new format appears to get more. Hopefully, we'll get individuals more engaged and interested in providing some feedback and more of that dialogue approach rather than just the testimony that you're describing. So I think it sounds like a great avenue to try, and hopefully that'll yield more engagement, at least during the meeting with the participants that are attending. So I think that sounds great.
Thank you. And one more thing that I might think to put on the agenda at the end of the agenda, time depending on how much time we spend with the public hearing, would be to invite PSUF. John, you can just give us maybe the high level findings from the open space and recreation plan process, since it will be wrapped up by that point. So that will be informative to the to this year's CPP. So like you might be able to give us a very high level summary of what you see the priorities were.
I would be happy to.
Great, thank you. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about with respect to the annual review period is upcoming events for tabling. And I will share the screen one more time. I have a schedule of potential events for tabling. The Winters Farmers Market is confirmed for Saturday, March 30th. And I have two slots, two 2-hour slots for committee members. I'll just plan to be there the whole time and be your partner for whoever can join me on that date. We have the last couple of years, we've also done tabling at the libraries, two 2.5 hours each, or 2 hour each at each of the libraries. I have tentatively put in dates for each of the libraries, but I'll plan to attend each of these if there's a committee member who's available to partner with me for any of these dates.
I'm happy to come with you to the Central Library on Thursday.
Okay. And let me know if the date works for you, because we could really do it any day, but I just picked.
Yeah, Thursdays are great for me. If they work well for you.
Okay.
I could do Friday, March 15th. My Thursdays that I work a full day at the office, so that's hard. The 4 to 6 is hard for me. I couldn't get there
Okay.
till 5:30. But if you change it to Friday, I don't work on Fridays. I could do that shift at West.
By any chance, would a Saturday the 30th work for you?
Instead, you mean? Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would do the West French is really fun because you can say the West French is a great place to table because you can say, here you are and look at this beautiful space.
Yeah.
It's very fun, but I could do Saturday the 30th, sure.
Okay. Do you
And
prefer the first or second shift?
What is that? It's, I'm just having a hard time reading it.
It is
Oh,
9:30
there
to
we go.
11:30.
Yeah, I'll take the first one.
Okay.
9:30.
So Roberta, I can take the second shift.
Okay.
and I'm interested in doing the West Branch Library one, although also being there at 4 o'clock is a little hard for me. I should probably be there a little later. I don't know how late they're open. Do they close at 6?
Let me see.
I think they're open till 9 on Thursdays, actually.
Yeah, so I could make it later.
Yeah. I mean, even 4:30, you
Yeah.
know, or 4:45 or something is better for me.
So I could make it 5 to 7.
Yeah, why don't we get, that would be better for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me just double check real quick that I don't have something on the 14th specifically, but no, I don't, so that should be fine.
All right. The East Branch is typically a very lightly attended. So I would welcome somebody meeting me at the East Branch, but I would also drop this location if it's not convenient to anyone.
Apologies that it is geographically convenient to me, but I'm gone all 4 of these dates.
Yeah. Understood.
Don't
I
even-
think it'll be fine.
Where is the East Branch? I don't even know where it is.
It's on Broadway.
Broadway, yeah.
Oh, okay.
What you said.
Yeah, about halfway between Cross Street and Mud Flat Studio.
Okay.
So, okay, I think that we'll be fine with these 3 events and we'll skip the East Branch Library this time.
Well, I just want to thank the committee members who are planning on attending these tabling events, and I encourage other committee members to consider it in perhaps in the summer and then later in the year as well. This is a great opportunity for outreach and to be able to share what the CPA funds are all about, as well as what our committee considers as part of the application process. So I just want to encourage everyone to continue to remain engaged here as well. So thank you so much, and thank you, Roberto, for organizing the plan, at least for March, and then I'm sure you're going to have other tabling events later on in the year as well.
Yep. Thank
Great.
you to all of you. And the last maybe thing that I will bring up is just a quick look ahead from the 2024 calendar. And so in addition to the public hearing, I'm just going to add review OSRP summary.
I'm sorry, what's that acronym?
Open Space and Recreation Plan.
Thank you.
So depending on whether we have time, we might bump that to the April meeting instead. So we'll be, after the public hearing, we'll be reviewing project updates. So I need to reach out to all of the grantees and ask them for updates so that we can see where they are with the ongoing projects. Review the results of the public engagement from this month.
Rupert, I'm just kind of confused. Are all those dates supposed to be 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That's why I have you read this with me so that you can tell me when I'm wrong. And then in May, we need to prepare our financial report and the annual CPA budget and present and approve the final plan. So I had talked about a discussion of our goals and priorities. Those are in the CPP, but maybe we can discuss goals and priorities. That's in the agenda for April. So I'll have something prepared for you all to refresh your memory of what the goals and priorities are that are expressed in the CPP. And so that's what we have coming up.
Great. Thank you so much, Roberta. It's always helpful to have the look ahead, several months ahead. So seeing that there are no other agenda items, I do want to pause to see if any committee member has any comments, anything that they would like to bring up for the good of the meeting.
Maybe just sort of dovetailing with this discussion that we had, and this came up earlier, the outreach, you know, like the brainstorm for outreach. That and that's not on that calendar formally because it's going to happen outside these meetings, I gather. But just don't want to lose sight of it. That's all. Feels important.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura. I share your sense of importance for the subcommittee, if that's what you're referring to.
Mhm.
You know, I'm also planning on joining in. So Roberta, if you could let us know when you would like to initiate that, and certainly available and happy to support as well.
Will do.
Great. And thank you, Laura, for highlighting that.
Mhm.
Great. So seeing no other comments, I'd like to see if somebody can make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll do that. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a second, perhaps?
Second.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. Roberta, do you mind calling roll?
Sure. Eric,
Yes.
Jahan,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. All in the affirmative. Motion passes. And thank you all for the hard work tonight and always. And look at that. I think we made a record for a quick meeting this evening.
Yes. We deserve it. We've had a few really long ones lately.
We have.
We did, absolutely. So also our next meeting is on Wednesday, March 27th. Hope to see everyone there, but thank you again for the exciting meeting with a lot of different viewpoints mentioned, and I encourage everyone to continue to share their thoughts. So thank you again. I hope everyone has a great evening, and talk to you soon. Take care.
And next month, maybe in person, maybe hybrid,
Maybe.
maybe.
I'll let you
right.
know.
TBD, right. Okay.
TBD. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Fair
Thank
enough.
Absolutely.
you. Bye-bye.
Good
Sounds
night.
great. Have a good night. Take care. Bye.